give us information on one of the items on our agenda, which we'll be going to as we move through the meeting. First, I want to thank the Tennessee Titans, and especially for Walter Overton for our meeting place here and refreshments this morning. And I think it'd be appropriate at this time to take a moment of silence and remember Bud Adams, who passed away since our last meeting. He was on the Titans, and for many years, many of us worked close to him through his organization here. So let's just pause for a moment of silence in memory of him. Thank you very much. I want to thank our board members and for the patience that they've had over the last several days. We've changed our meeting 2 or 3 times, but looking around the table at our attendance this morning, it is very good, and I appreciate you changing your schedule to be here. I also like to recognize one other thing relative to our members. I think most of you have heard by now that Lauren Brisky has resigned from the authority. Lauren has moved to Sumner County on a permanent basis for her retirement, where they had a home, and so she will no longer be with us. And Lauren will be sent a note of commendation, because we often went to her for questions that we might have relating to audit or other financial management. So we're sorry that we have lost her. We have had a lot of things happening in the past months. Actually, since we met, the groundbreaking for the ice hockey facility, the announcement of the SEC basketball tournaments that will be occurring in our city, and of course the baseball news and the community meeting held at the farmers market. We thank the planning department for hosting that event, the planning department of the city, and several of us were able to go and hear what we're going to hear again today, and maybe several times as we move forward. As we start, I would like to point out the appeals policy for the Sports Authority. It's listed on the meeting agenda and on the website. If anyone here would like to discuss anything that we talk about here that you feel that you need more information or whatever. Now I'm going to move to the agenda, and if I can find it here. We get a lot of papers, and I don't always have it right in front of me, but we're going to have our executive director's report next on our agenda. And Toby has been working diligently, and Monica's been supporting him in every way, and especially during this period of time. And he burnt some midnight oil the last 2 or 3 days, and Toby, we appreciate it very much. And he's going to make some introductions, too, as we move forward.
I will indeed, but first we need to go back to one item on the agenda, which is to approve the minutes from the September 19 meeting.
I hear a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go back to Toby now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And before I get started, I want to recognize the council members who have taken their time this morning to be briefed with us. We have Council Lady Gilmore, whose district the project of the ballpark project is with us this morning, as is Council Lady Berry, Councilman Walter Hunt, Councilman Robert Duvall, and Dwayne Dominy. They are all here. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone except for Ronnie Stein, who is the Metro Council man at large. And we also have 2 former councilmen. We have Rip Ryman and Jim Forkham, whom I got to work with a great deal when I was in the mayor's office, and I appreciate them being here as well. As we get started, we'll quickly go over what's in the board packets before you. Obviously, tab number 1 is the minutes that you've just approved from the September 19th meeting. Tab 2 is my written report to the board. Tab 3 is the LP Field and Titans update, which also was mailed to you previously, perhaps a couple weeks ago almost. Tab 4 is the report from August and September from Powers Management and the Predators. And then tab 5 is a resolution that we will discuss in greater detail shortly. It has been a busy time for us in the past couple months, and I appreciate everyone's patience as we've come together at this meeting. And Mr. Chairman, with that, we will get back into the order of business.
Okay. The first order of business today is the Titans LP Field report. And Walter, are you going to be doing this?
I think so.
Okay.
Good morning. Chairman
Morning.
and board members. Does everybody have your report that was mailed to you?
We do.
I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Right.
All right.
It's under tab 3.
Since our last meeting, September 19th, we've had 7 games at LP Field. 2 of those games were TSU. 1 was homecoming, which I thought that we had a very successful homecoming event. Coach, you would be happy to know that I'm sure you got in the park, and we certainly made.
I couldn't get out.
Well, you got in, Coach. We made sure that you would get in, Coach. So that was a very successful event. We had approximately a little over 20,000 that was inside the stadium. I'm not sure how many are outside of the stadium, but very successful event, and I hope that TSU alums and all of TSU's friends were very happy with how that event was conducted. Of course, I'm not going to dwell too much on yesterday. The only good part about that is that we have a short week and that we will be prepared for Thursday night's game. In your tab 1, we have our LP Field calendar that we always furnish you. As you see that there are a number of events that goes on at LP Field. Too many for us to mention at this particular meeting since we have a full house and there are a lot of other things on the agenda. Tab 2 is our LP Field casualty loss. We have just over $7,400 casualty loss items that we need to vet with Metro Insurance. Tab 3 is our ticket user fee. We have just over 1.9 million that's left in our ticket user fee. Is that correct? Okay. Tab 4 is our capital fund. Is at this particular time is just under 1.2 million that's in that fund. Tab 5 is the CMA parking report for 2013. Toby, is that something that you've already discussed with the board on that tab? Okay. If you look at that, you see the actual split of that particular parking where CMA receives 50%, Sports Authority 25%, LP Field receives 25%. And you can see the totals where CMA received over 110,000, Sports Authority just over 55,000, and LP Field just over 55,000. Tab 6 is our capital reimbursement information. We still have unfiled reimbursements totaling slightly more than $3 million. Sometime in 14, we'll vet that with Toby and Monica, Bob Lackey, to see if some of the reimbursements we'll seek reimbursements. Our capital expense report shows what items that we're working on, those that have been completed, those that are still going on with our projects. One of the things I do want to bring up is what I call the displacement of soil, because Emily wants to call it the sinkhole, but we don't call it sinkhole. But one of the things that we've done is we've planted grass, and that's located right in front of LP Field's stadium offices, and it has grown very, very well. I think that was a very smart decision that was made, that we were able to have grass in that particular area, as opposed to putting additional concrete that we weren't sure whether or not that that particular area would have some sort of slippage. But at this particular time, it's doing quite well.
Take a look at it.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions from Walter about the Titans, etc.?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter, for that report. Wish you the Titans success Thursday evening when they play Indianapolis. Okay. Okay. As we keep moving, the Predators Bridgestone Arena report, Sean Henry will, our president. Sean's been very busy likewise with a lot of things going on over there, right, Sean?
A lot of things, but shaving is not one of them. You know, I've been watching Toby, and I realized, you know what, I should grow something. In the spirit of Movember, no one in our building's shaving for the month of November. But I don't do this often, but I want to chastise Toby for scheduling this meeting today. It was pretty bad timing. Do so on a Monday morning after the Titans lose and we lose makes for a bad Monday. So try to do better next time. I think you jinxed us last night when we sent out the agenda, talking about how bad the Devils were. But despite what happened this weekend with us, we're still sitting well. It's a long, long road trip because of the CMAs, and we have 5 out of possible 10 points right now, which makes for a good road trip. We play tomorrow on the island, and then Pittsburgh Friday to come home Saturday against the Blackhawks. So we're pretty enthusiastic still where we're sitting. Before we get into the reports, you know, my monthly bragging a little bit. We're just nominated as the Arena of the Year for the 7th year in a row by Polestar Magazine. So the good news is we have to win this year, right? It's our 7th time. It's a lucky number. We've always been Susan Lucci before that. The buildings we're nominated with are MSG in New York, the Staples Center in LA, BOK in wherever that is, Oklahoma City, I think, Barclays, brand new $700 million building in Brooklyn, and San Jose's building. So it's a real nice company we're sitting in, and hopefully we'll receive that award in our own building when we have the awards here in February. Also in that same press announcement that we had, David Kells, who books our building, was nominated for the 2nd year in a row as Executive of the Year for our industry. So it's pretty exciting for him. Just doing a great job. We also just received the Corporation Philanthropic Award, which was a nice company we're sitting in because Vince Gill won the Philanthropist of the Year. So that was a fun event just last week. Business Journal also is going to award us an annual award. Jerry, what's it for? There are a lot of awards, I forget. A lot of philanthropy awards we're getting right now for our foundation. So it's something you should all be very, very proud of. I think you said so in your report. We're just given 12 straight SEC basketball championships, which is just incredible. 9 men, 3 women. This has never been done before, so it's a real nice nod to our city, our community, the Sports Council, and really all of you. And then lastly, the CMAs are just moving out of our building now, so we can start playing hockey again. What's exciting, last week was the highest rating the CMAs ever enjoyed, you know, broadcast right from the heart of downtown and from our building. So just a great stretch that we're on. Going into the months of September and August, if you have any questions on the reports that sent out, you know, please ask. I'd love to answer them because they're 2 of the best months we've ever had. We just finished the strongest quarter the building's ever enjoyed, and we're on pace for another record year, which beats last year. And that's what's a little scary when we're comparing our numbers right now to last year's. You don't want to do it because last year was a record. Yet somehow this year we're taking those numbers and beating them in pretty strong fashion. What I'm really excited about is when we get to do October's report, because as strong as September was, again, the strongest ever, October was even better. So we're really excited about what this year is going to bring. But on all fronts, we're sitting in really nice fashion. So if you have any questions at all about our finances that you have before you, again, one's a little bit dated because we sent it out about a month ago, and then the others we sent out, I don't know, a few weeks ago. So.
Anyone have any questions, Sean?
If not, I think I'll turn it to Toby, who's going to talk about capital improvements.
Yeah, stay right there.
I won't move.
So,
The board has been talking about for some time some changes to the capital improvement process as it relates to capital requests from Powers Management and the Arena. And on October 8th, Margaret Bim, one of our board members, helped lead the meeting with Bob Lackey and Margaret Darby, who, by the way, we have Tom Cross sitting in today because Margaret has just gotten married, so we congratulate her. And Tom's going to do a great job today. Any hard questions, go to Tom. So Margaret Darby and myself met with Sean and Beth Snyder, Michelle Kennedy, and Kyle Clayton to really kind of formalize a process. At the December meeting, what will come before you is a policy that recommends how we address these needs. But before us today is a request that the Predators made at the September 19th meeting formally, which is to approve $825,000 in capital improvements. If you're looking in the Executive Director's report on page 3, we outline at the top of that page there, kind of in a grid, the 4 requests, which are suite renovations at $680,000, floor seats at $45,000, signage in the building, and this is non-revenue generating signage, $50,000, and dressing room renovations, which also equal $50,000. And that brings us to a total of $825,000 in this request for this fiscal year. I would like to point out that currently in our SIF accounts is a balance exceeding $1.3 million, and our maximum leverage is just above $6 million. So we have plenty of room in our current structure to accommodate this request. Do you have anything to say about the?
Yeah, just to add to it, we talked about this a month or 2 ago. This is a continuation of the work that we started last year, renovation of the suites, recreating some of the hospitality space and dressing rooms, backstage, and bringing more of the personality of our community into the building. So again, it's a continuation. What you'll see probably in the December meeting, once we go through the final procedures, will be our plans for really next year, where we'll probably be a little bit more impactful in addressing some of the demands of the SEC, following from the women's Final Fours. We prepare our next round of bids, for that. We're going to look to build probably a hospitality space on the ground floor area to really take care of those. So as Toby said, we're building somewhat of surplus within that capital funds to take care of, as I said a few years ago, every 2 or 3 years we do a real big project, and then for the next 2 or 3 years we just do some fun things that people will notice and bring new life to the building.
Okay, Margaret?
Yeah, I've taken a look at this capital request. We had a really good meeting, and I move approval of the capital request.
A motion's been made to approve the capital request. Is there a second? Second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? This is approved. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Joey. That takes care of item 6 on our agenda, so we'll move to the next item on our agenda, and that is the Bridgestone Arena South Entrance construction update. Patrick Holcomb from the Convention Center Authority will give that report.
Good morning. Hope y'all are doing well this morning.
Good.
I'll keep my presentation brief. Just going to give you all an update on the south entrance, all the work associated with the plaza, the interior shell spaces for the new pub, retail, and restaurant. If you guys have been by there lately, you've probably seen the plaza's come a long way from what it used to look like. We've basically removed everything that was original to the building and almost nearly come back with all the new completed hardscapes and walls. You'll start to see some of the glass rails go up later this month, 1st of December. You'll also start to see some of the exterior curtain wall and some of the exterior metal mesh. The clips are actually going up this week, and you'll start to see some of that material coming up in the next couple of weeks. If you guys have been inside the arena lately and gone down the concourse in those adjacent areas, you've probably seen some of the new storefront that's going in. One of those storefronts starts to frame in the new retail that's going in. Also, you've probably seen over behind the Ford trucks and cars in that area where the new Fifth Avenue restaurant's going to go, and you've seen some of that storefront go in as well. With what we're doing on the inside of the building, we're very close to completion of that work. Part of that's the nature of what we're doing, in that we're only providing a shell in that sense. The actual restaurant, the actual team store will come in and do their build out at a later date. So what you'll see delivered from us is more or less a box that'll be able to contain those different parts and pieces. From the outside, however, you'll see a finished product. You'll start to see that plaza really take shape. You'll start to see the entrance from the exterior going into the pub really come into play. You'll start to see if you've been by, you've seen the supports for the canopy and some of the nano wall, which is an operable glass wall. So during times, probably not this morning, you wouldn't see it open, but maybe this afternoon when it's 65 degrees, you may see that glass wall open. Ultimately, when that restaurant, that pub is operational. From a substantial completion, we're still targeting December 20th, as we originally were. The mesh on the garage, because that was added later, and I'll tie into that with our budget, that's going to push out a little bit. Our budget of $7 million that the city gave us is holding up very, very well. So well, that's part of the reason why you saw us add the mesh. We were able to see what the original scope of work was and see that we're going to fit in another portion of work, and that was cleaning up the garage mesh. Also, you've probably seen that we've completely pressure washed and sealed the entire building, the precast. So you've probably seen a facelift all the way up and down Broadway, 6th Avenue, 5th, and DeMarmering as well. So really cleaning up the look of the entire building, hopefully kind of refacing that building as a whole as well. A couple of things just on that substantial completion, you're really going to see that it'll affect everybody. Is going to be that plaza, that new south entrance. You'll see a much more improved egress coming out of that south entrance, especially from what it's like right now during construction. Again, the retail, the pub, and the restaurant, those are going to be shell portions. They won't necessarily be open for business on those days. And again, the budget is very, very doing well at this point, holding up. Do y'all have any questions?
Any questions for Patrick? Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. That's an exciting project. You're doing a lot of great things.
We had intended to do some tours at the facility at this particular meeting, but obviously with the change in some of the agenda and with the need for some additional parking for a nice crowd, we didn't do that today. So any board member that would like to do a tour, Patrick, Sean, or myself would be happy to accommodate that.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Patrick. Moving right along with the agenda with ice hockey facility construction update. Please welcome Remick Moore from Metro General Services, who is helping with the construction of the ice hockey facility, and he'll bring to us an update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just to give you a quick update, we're moving right along out there at the site. We have, as you know, our 100% construction documents are complete. We had a 100% review with the Predators on November 1st, and that meeting went very well, and we're looking good on our final pricing as well, being in that allocated budget. So at the site, we have a grading permit in hand, and we're basically doing site work, excavating material for the slab and the main utilities to the site. So that's pretty much where we're at right now.
If any of you driven by, you'll see the work taking place there.
Oh yes, there's lots of large equipment on site, lots of dirt and rocks. That's all you can see at this point.
That's right. Any questions or any? Okay, thank you very much.
All right,
for that
thank you.
update. Well, our next item on the agenda is one why many of our people are here this morning to learn more about, and that's the ballpark at Sufferdale, and we're going to have a presentation. We're going to have a presentation on the site plan, and we're going to have a report from our Metro Finance Director, and so I'm going to introduce both items on the next part of the agenda, and we'll move from one to the other. And as you can see, Ron Goebel, Goebel Hayes Architects, is going to be presenting the presentation relative to Sufferdale, and then Rich Riblin, Metro Finance Director, along with Jeff Oldham from Bassberry and Sims, who is a Metro Bond Council person. And so we're going to have a good presentation coming up, and it's an exciting one. And I know that all of the authorities are very excited about what's happening, and I hope we'll find that we can move forward with this. So let's go ahead with our presentation then first.
Mr. Chairman, members of the authority, I guess you're not tired of seeing me yet, so I guess I'll keep coming back. And I know you appreciate the fact that we could get all these TV cameras out here for you today, so all your families can see you live and in color on the news tonight.
I know we're working.
And various other times. And at least they know where you are this morning, you know. Sure, you went to an authority meeting at 8:30 on a Monday morning, right? I appreciate it. So we've got sort of presentation broke down into two parts for the authority this morning. And we thought it was important. The first part, which is going to be done by Ron Goblin, actually Bruce Miller with Populous, the architectural firm that actually designed this building as well as the arena and is working on the ballpark with us, was able to fly in to make this meeting as well. We weren't sure he was going to be able to get here in time. And so Ron and Bruce are going to sort of walk through, very similar to what we presented to the public at Farmers Market a couple weeks ago, which is sort sort of just kind of where they are on the design and kind of where it fits into the neighborhood, just kind of more of the visual of kind of where they are on the picture. And then I'm going to take over and walk through sort of the details of the financing and the whole land transaction. We felt it was important that the legislation will be filed this week with the council. We felt it was important that both the Sports Authority and the council, and I sincerely appreciate the members of the council who were able to get here this morning as well, that they hear the details of this first. They're the bodies that have to decide on this. Ultimately, the council has to give you the authority to issue the bonds, and you have to decide whether you want to issue the bonds to finance the project and approve the transaction. So we felt that was the proper way to do this. And so without getting into a lot more details in a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Ron and Bruce, who are going to sort of walk you through, I think you all have a copy of it, but it's up on the screen, sort of where they are on the concept and design for the ballpark.
Thanks, Rich, and members of the commission. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here. Our firm is the project managers on this project. We're working with Capital Project Solutions in that role, and then as Rich said, Bruce is with Populous. Populous designs, 70 to 80% of the stadiums and ballparks around the country, so they know it. They know these kind of buildings. I'm going to walk you through just a little bit of the context that we're in, and then we'll talk about the ballpark itself. We're going to be talking just for a minute or two on some of the issues that we've identified and we're going to be tracking down, and then project benefits, and we'll probably save the questions until after, but of course if you got anything, we'll be happy to answer it at any time. So the property we're looking at is now half of that's owned by the state. It's Fifth Avenue is the street that runs diagonally through this area right here. There's Fifth Avenue, and the state is planning the new library and archives building right here, a new state museum here, and the Bicentennial Mall fits right there. So that's the context. We're surrounded by a lot of very important and historic neighborhoods, Germantown, Salem Town, Hope Gardens, Buena Vista, Cheatham Place, all of that has a lot of history, but in this area here, really the history has been baseball. That's this area, that's what's the old Suffordale area. And it's really not developed an identity. It's kind of just a vacant spot right now with a lot of surface parking and some abandoned buildings and those kind of issues. So we're really beginning to focus on that area right in here and beginning to say, how can we make this work? And really continuing to the city has really put a lot into Fifth Avenue, the arts, the new Music City Center is down here. Of course, the arena is right there, the Ryman, Fifth Avenue, the arts. So all of this is going to be a major connector as we tie all this together, going all the way to Germantown. Some of those items that we mentioned. This is the old site of the Suffordale ballpark. It was originally squeezed into this area here between 4th and 5th, surrounded by a railroad spur to the south and Jackson Boulevard to the north. And it was a interesting ballpark. And many of us who were around remember going to that ballpark, seeing the hills and the outfield. Right field, I think it was 229 feet to the fence. So the right fielder would actually play on the side of the hill and come down, give us a great home court advantage. We also had a lot of industrial things going on in that area. So that had a lot of the history to it as well. This is some more shots of the ballpark. That building's on Jackson. That's the scoreboard was the back of a building. But like I said, I came here as a kid. Many others did. We've heard a lot of stories about people meeting there. But to kind of talk about the ballpark design itself, Bruce.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're happy to be here again in Nashville, and we're really excited about this opportunity to create a new urban ballpark neighborhood. I think that's one of the most important things about the project is that the ballpark is really sort of buried within the block, and we think that there's going to be a lot of development around the building that will really make it an exciting destination in North Nashville. So you can see here the Greenway is one of the borders to the south. This is 4th here. This is the parking garage, the future State Museum, and the Library and Archives. And then these other blue buildings around here are planned multi-use and multifamily residential. We think the tie-in to the Greenway is a really important feature of the ballpark. We're thinking of this as a park within the park, so that the 3 acres of green grass from the ballpark can tie into the Greenway and really become an extension of the Greenway. This is a view from behind home plate, looking back toward downtown. I think it justifies and shows why we've oriented the field this way. I think the view to downtown will really be spectacular. And there's another shot, a little bit higher, but you really have a great view of the skyline of Nashville, and the Capitol is back here. So when you're in the ballpark, you're going to feel like you're no other place but Nashville. These are some representative projects that we've done. This is a ballpark in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but you can see how, as we're trying to do here, the downtown development really starts to happen and weave into the design of the ballpark. This is a project across the state in Memphis. Again, downtown residential, office, and parking right adjacent to it. This is an area of the ballpark that we hope becomes something like Coors Field in Denver, where the approach from downtown down 4th Avenue really starts to be lined by mixed use and really creates a dramatic entry that culminates in this view to the ballpark and the field. And then the idea of the park within the park. We think the Greenway can really be expanded and enhanced and really become a lively place that's used year-round. This is the idea in San Diego, where this is actually public green space, 365, and then it becomes part of the ballpark on game day. And this is the overall plan. Again, the Greenway here, this is 5th, Museum and Archives here, 3rd along here, and the parking deck at this point. So we're trying to address in the public meeting just some of the common concerns that neighbors might have: lighting, sound, parking, traffic, and pedestrian connections. We know those are concerns. This is an urban site, but it's really being designed as a neighborhood ballpark. We want to be a good neighbor to the surrounding areas, and we want to address these issues proactively as we get into the design. Field lighting, we're going to use a state-of-the-art system that's shielded to minimize any spill light. I think it's significant that minor league baseball is family entertainment. So most of these games don't go past 10 o'clock, and we're going to make sure the housekeeping lights are dimmed. Sound, we'll use a distributed sound system to keep the overall volumes down. Again, games don't go past 10 o'clock. We're also recessing the playing field, and we're setting the field back from surrounding streets. So we're trying to minimize the impact with the early planning that we're doing right now. Parking, we're going to fulfill over 1/3 of the parking need with the new parking deck that we highlighted in the plan. On the average night, over half the parking would be provided in that deck. Traffic, there's a traffic study underway. Again, we understand that can be an impact, but we're going to do our best to mitigate any of those impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods. We do have, I want to point out, excellent access to arterial streets, and that traffic will be dispersed. It won't be like everybody's lining up to get on one highway. And pedestrian connections, Ron pointed out the Avenue of the Arts. We think that's a really strong connection back to downtown, and we think it will be complementary to the state's plans for the area. And again, it should be an excellent extension of the Greenway.
Obviously, it's going to be a huge benefit to everybody involved, and those of us that are baseball fans particular, but also in the redevelopment of that part of the city. I think it's going to be a much better experience. We are talking about 8,500 fixed seats with another 1,500 or so in the outfield we are talking about a strong connectivity that's going to be north and south through this, and then again the enhanced park and greenway. So all of that being said, that's the issue, and if you'll forgive me, I'm going to try to load up Rich's presentation. This ought to be entertaining. But
I have a question.
Huh? Oh, sure.
While you do that, Ron, how does that compare? How does the size of the seating and the parking compare to what we have today?
At Greer Stadium?
Yes.
I think Greer is like 10,300, so the capacity is about the same. But I think what you'll see is a lot better variety of seats closer to the field, and a lot more intimate setting.
Okay. And parking?
Parking, I'm not sure, honestly. Do you know the parking number at Greer?
Yeah.
Right there where the sounds here.
It's less than 1,000 on the site. Less than 1,000. So we'll have plenty of parking as it relates to.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, here's.
Sorry.
Fourth Avenue that goes into the ballpark, will that be pedestrian only, like you're comparing it to Coors Field, pedestrian entrance?
What we're proposing, we still haven't gotten the parking garage, all the design issues worked out in the parking garage. But what we're proposing is that 4th Avenue will stop at the ballpark. The south of the 4th Avenue to Harrison Street will be that would be pedestrian probably on game days and not doing the other. There's residential and multi-use on one side and a parking garage on the other, and we're trying to work out all the details. So what Bruce presented is an idea or a concept we're going to try to achieve. To refresh everybody's memory, 4th Avenue going south curves into 3rd Avenue only about 2 blocks down. So it's not a street that connects all the way down. It stops and goes over.
I think when we looked at it, clearly it was 4th Avenue took the less traffic, and if any street, you're going to have to close the street to build a ballpark. 4th Avenue clearly was the best to do, because again, because it dead ends into 3rd, just another block or two. Yeah.
Margaret, did you have a question?
Yes, just another question about parking. So you mentioned there'll be a new 1,000-car lot, and then on this slide, there's several surface lots in the area between Jefferson Street and James Robinson Parkway. Are you talking about the state parking lots?
Many of them are state, but there's also some metro-controlled lots. There's also a lot of private lots that we would see coming into play. I think we calculated within 3/4 of a mile, there's 17,000 parking spaces.
Are we able to use the state parking lots?
Well, that's something we're talking to the state about.
We'll talk to the state about getting a long-term operation on that, and that's to come.
Okay.
But I think they seem open to that.
Yeah, good.
And one of the things that somebody who yesterday walked over to the Titans game from downtown, one of the things that we really hope to encourage is some kind of connection, either through shuttles or pedestrian connections, down 5th for those like myself and Commissioner Walker who live downtown. Then we can walk to the games. So, anything else?
Alfonso.
Typically, how many of the Sounds games are during the day, during the work day? And you guys may not be the ones to answer that, but.
Well, I think after the end of May, they all have to be at night. So, yeah, they start at 7, and
right.
Sunday afternoon.
There's a fireworks tradition that happens after the games. Would that continue, and is that a point of contention for the residents?
we're discussing this with the residents. I'm sure it's concerned by a lot of people, but a lot of people like fireworks as well. So, it's one of those things that will be discussed as we have some more of our neighborhood meetings, and I'm sure everybody's going to be anxious to deal with it. I think now it's only done on Friday and Saturday nights, and so there'll be some more discussion on that.
Margaret?
Just another question about lighting. You mentioned there is a recessed field. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, ma'am. It's kind of hard to see on this these drawings because the field is so large, but that field is actually 12 to 14 feet below the street level. So it's down, so that means the lights and everything else go down. And then the other thing that, when you look at that plan that you have in your packet, we're centering the ballpark on 4th Avenue. That means it's going to be away from 3rd and away from 5th. So it's going to be kind of in the center of this 2-block box that we're creating. So it's not going to have a lot of immediate spillover into that neighborhood. And then with high technology lights, we can control those, and for housekeeping, we can get them turned down. And so we really don't, you'll get a glow, no question about that, but we really don't think it's going to be a problem for any of the neighborhoods like Germantown and the others that are close by. And again, on the west side, it'll be state buildings.
You used as an example, excuse me, one of the other fields where the green space was open to the public. Would that be incorporated into this?
Yes, sir. It will definitely be open to the public, but during game days, it's going to be part of the ballpark experience. So if you're like me with grandkids that like to run, you'll get them out there and have them run around a little bit while you're trying to keep up with the ball game. But that's going to be very much an important part of the design of this ballpark.
Is this in the floodplain?
Yeah, the floodplain, the building itself is going to be about 5 feet above the 100-year floodplain and about a foot above where it got to in 2010. Those are different. The ball field itself will be below the floodplain, but we're setting it up to handle those kind of issues when we have the kind of range that we had in 2010. So
this building, this football field is recessed.
Right.
Down below the floodplain, which
it was underwater.
Created us some problems before.
Right.
Won't be sure that
and we're going to be, we're trying to address all those issues, but in that 1,000-year flood, versus a 100-year flood, and trying to figure out what do we design to. That's something we're still sorting out. But the goal is to make sure that nothing is below the 100-year floodplain that's truly occupied, that has not been conditioned to handle that kind of situation.
Well, the 100-year flood is sort of a misnomer.
Well, it seems to be happening quite often.
We have a 100-year flood about every 2 years.
Yes, sir. That's
that ought to leave us, several thousand years.
Yeah.
It really means anything. I'm not sure.
Ron, how many neighborhood meetings have you all had, and can you tell us what the concerns have been, or what the general tone has been?
To date, we've only had one major neighborhood meeting since we've gotten to this point. Once we get approval from all involved, and we can get out there and start really getting fine-tuning on the design issues. But we'll be available to visit with anybody at any time. So.
But did they have any? Were they excited?
No, so far we've really not heard a lot of pushback. So we've been very, very excited about it. I think it's really going to be good for the redevelopment of that area if we can get this into that spot and help connect those neighborhoods to downtown and get a good pedestrian environment where you can go up and down Fifth comfortably and not be going past a bunch of surface parking lots and all. So we get a nice well-lit street. I think that'll help. And Third, too, for that matter, because Third will be coming into play, and it's a straight shot downtown as well.
There were about 400 attendees at that meeting in the park.
Well, good. That's positive. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Rich?
Follow up on the neighborhood issue. I think there's been, generally positive feedback. I mean, I think there's always questions similar to what you asked, lighting, parking, traffic. Those that are going to have to be addressed as we go forward. But I think generally, from our feedback and the mayor's office feedback, it's been mostly positive in terms of kind of excitement over this concept. So I think it's all, a lot of details, but mostly good. All right.
Well, let's go ahead and hear from Rich right now.
How do I change this, by the way? Hit the, what button? Oh, where is it now? This one? Yeah, got it. Okay. Sorry. I'm not very technically good at this kind of stuff, but we'll try to make it work. Let me, as we said, we want to get into the specifics and the details of the transaction. Obviously, the devil's always in the details when we do this, and I want to say that this would not be possible without it being a true public-private partnership. It's not, we hear that term a lot, public-private partnership, and I'm not sure anyone really knows what it means, but in this situation, I can't think of anything more public or more private in terms of what we're doing. As you can see on this slide, it has taken the full cooperation, really, of two governments and two private entities to get us to the point where we could file legislation and really present a detailed plan for your consideration. We are, needless to say, very excited about this. We think it is an opportunity to bring a new facility to Nashville. I think all of you who have been to Greer Stadium in recent years, through no neglect by the owners of any kind, it's simply that that building, that facility is old. It was built very inexpensively when first constructed in 1978, has worn time well, but its days are numbered. And if anything, of all the other quality facilities that we have in the city, all the things that we've worked on together to improve Bridgestone, to improve LP Field, we are woefully behind as it relates to a minor league stadium. It's my belief that the Greer currently is like the second oldest AAA stadium, which it's still being used, and it's really time for us to come together for a plan. And it wouldn't be possible without the full cooperation of all these players, all of whom I will talk about in the course of this presentation to sort of understand everybody's role in this, and then there'll be a quiz afterwards for those who can tell whose property is where and what's going what. It's we'll test all of you before we're done. We do have Sounds representatives here today, and I appreciate them being here. They have wanted a new stadium for a number of years, and it's taken initiative really started by the Sounds that said, we have looked at the sites that are possible. If we can make Selfordell work, we'd be interested in participating in a significant way to make that possible. And so that sort of got the genesis, got it all talking, and then ultimately, obviously, you have to have the land. And so that sort of has been the most complicated and detailed part of this that we'll get into here. But it's taken a lot of cooperation. The basic transaction, it's obviously a lot more details, but here it is Metro Nashville Sports Authority. We get the land for the ballpark plus the adjacent greenway development. In addition, the city will receive from the state 28 acres at the old TPS site, the Tennessee Preparatory School site, which includes the existing Nashville School of the Arts. Currently, the schools have been leasing that facility for a number of years. They've been leasing that facility, paying the state $410,000 a year in rent. And the school board rightfully has been very reluctant to put money into that really popular school, really growing school in Nashville, because they didn't know if they were going to have a long-term relationship at that school. And so now this will clear that up, and sort of a real, I think, critical portion of this transaction is the additional benefit with the TPS property and a permanent ownership of the School for the Arts property. The state's going to get money to construct really two parking facilities. As you look at the map, the state has long-term plans to do a library and archives building and a new state museum on the block across the street from this proposed site. They've always considered that they would have ample parking because of the surface lots that we would be taking up because of all this development. And so in order to really make the state whole and to build for the future, what we're going to do is give them funds to construct a 1,000-car garage and an additional $5 million to construct parking underneath the library and archives building, total of $23 million. So here's the agreement between the state and Metro. Again, kind of repeats what's said on the other slide, but a little more detail. On the state side is $18 million for 1,000-car garage, which we, of course, will have use of for sounds, games, and other civic events. Then $5 million for the underground parking at the library and archives. So $23 million of the bond transaction will be paid over to the state. We get, of course, the land for the ballpark, Greenway Development, the TPS property, and so I think it was important to get a like transaction so that no one was sort of taking advantage of anybody. It was a fair transaction, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so we're giving the state $23 million. We have appraised values on all the land that we're getting of somewhere in the $21+ million range. So essentially an equal relationship. I think that, as an aside, I think the state really totally undervalued the TPS property because I don't think they put much value on the School for the Arts, which of course I think we have a lot of value because of our use and long-term use of that facility for Nashville school children. Now we get into the private agreements. There's an agreement with a company called Embry Development. As we started on this project, I tried to identify what land we were going to need to make the project work. And as it turned out, sort of shockingly to us, a Texas development company called Embry had optioned a portion of the property we needed for the stadium. I mean, it's left field. I guess we didn't need it if we didn't need a left field. But I think we usually need a left field. Most of the ballparks have left field. Everyone has left field. Okay, so if we didn't need left field, which we would be unique, but maybe too unique, we needed to have the property that Embry had option on. Embry had beginning plans to construct a multifamily development there on that site. We met with them. They have been incredibly cooperative. And essentially, as you'll see when I show you kind of how the property swaps, we're going to trade them one piece of property for another piece of property, basically a fair trade, with Metro also having to pay some of the duplicative costs. As you can imagine, they've already been down the road on this project. We asked them to hold, and now they got to go back and design a whole new project. So out of fairness, the right thing to do, we're obviously going to reimburse them for some of those costs associated with that. The Sounds ballpark lease, as I said, the Sounds are bringing skin to the game in this transaction. They're going to be active players in this. We'll have a 30-year lease that commences with the opening ballpark, goes to 2045. The Sounds will be paying annual rent of $700,000. As an aside, they currently pay nothing at Greer. It's a park property. The Sounds will operate and manage the ballpark. The Sounds will be able to keep the revenue from the parking facilities, the 1,000-car garage, and the Sounds will be responsible for the ballpark maintenance, and Metro is responsible for the major capital expenditures, sort of similar to what we do on some of our other facilities around. And obviously, all that lease will be subject to the Sports Authority approval if and when we get to that point later in this process. This is where it gets to be fun. Pretty maps to understand the transaction. We've sort of tried to break it down in a couple maps so that everybody can kind of see the flow of land. And I will probably mess this up, so Bruce or Ron, help me. The pink, this is how it this is the ownership and control as it currently sits. The pink is state-owned property. All that is state-controlled, state-owned. The blue is the Embry-controlled property. Right, Tom? Okay. Mr. Crow, my legal director, my legal advisor here is going to make sure he's nodding, so I'm doing good so far. The blue is Embry-controlled property, and the green, the solid green, and the green sort of diagonal striped is property that the Sounds have got under its control. So we've got state land, Embry-controlled land in blue, Sounds-controlled property in green. Now, you're going to like this next slide. Now, on the left, I hope you can see this. On the left is the way it is now, and then on the right is the way it's going to be, assuming all this moves forward. As you can see, the blue Embry property moves to Jefferson Street. The yellow, or I guess green, whatever color that is, the light, I guess it's yellow, light green, yellow, is the footprint for the stadium, for the ballpark. And then the other green becomes the property available to the Sounds for its development, which is part of this. And then the red striped diagonal is where the parking facility is going to go. Okay? Now, next slide sort of just blows it up and tells you the future and kind of makes it clear. I thought the side-by-side would be helpful to look at it, and then this kind of blows up the way it'll be once the transaction is completed. Okay? And then you can see how it sort of fits into, you've seen this slide, but this sort of I thought was important to put in again, sort of puts it in context of the overall neighbors. On the far left is Farmers Market. The next to Farmers Market is the Bicentennial Mall. Then in the next block are the to-be-built State Library and Archives up on Jefferson Street, and then hopefully a new State Museum below that. The Embry development to the north on Jefferson Street, the ballpark, and then the Sounds development and the parking garage. So at the end of the day, the architects have talked about the connectivity between downtown and Germantown. I mean, we will have, I think, one of the best campuses you could find anywhere in the country for a complex between minor league baseball and all these other additional state facilities. Obviously, a very, very important part of this project is the private development. Because as you will see shortly, the private development is going to play a significant role in paying for this project. As I mentioned earlier, Embry, which is a San Antonio-based company working on a project in Williamson County as well as here in Nashville currently, they have plans, will construct a 250-plus unit multifamily complex, which they think they'll spend about $37 million on. It's their numbers. The Sounds are finalizing their plans. Obviously, this is moving fast. We don't have the details of their plan yet, but the Sounds are looking at also a multifamily project with a retail component, and they're estimating that they're going to spend about $50 million. So all of this is going to be built right around the ballpark, in connection with the ballpark, and most of which will occur simultaneously with the construction of the ballpark. I'm not sure it's all going to be done on the same day and all match up, but essentially all this development is going to occur around the same time that the ballpark is being developed. Council legislation, a lot more relevant for this afternoon's briefing with the council. And while I mentioned council, let me say that since Toby introduced all the council members who were here, I think since then Councilman Brady Banks and Councilman Jerry Maynard have arrived. And I want to make sure everyone knows that they're here as well. Appreciate they and the other council members being here. So the council legislation is sort of broken down into three pieces. It's the financing ordinance, which essentially gives the Sports Authority the right to issue the bonds. The real estate ordinance, which is the agreements with the state and Embry. and then the extension of the Phillips Jackson redevelopment district. This property already sits in the redevelopment district, and what we're doing is extending the term, asking the council to extend the term of that redevelopment district and extend the amount of debt that can be issued as part of TIF financing for the redevelopment district. Sports Authority, what we are asking you to consider today is a resolution that requests the council to approval to issue the bonds. As you may recall from prior transactions, the Sports Authority issues the bonds, but you don't have the power to issue the bonds unless the Metro Council says you can do so. They sort of have to ultimate checks and balances. It's the joy of metropolitan government, checks and balances. And so today, to start the process, again, this doesn't obligate anything. It just starts the process, which gives us plenty of, a lot of time, I hope, for everyone to review all the agreements and get comfortable with the transaction. But you start the process by asking the council to give approval, and then we move forward with the council process, 3 readings, take an ordinance, and should the council approve it, then it comes back to the Sports Authority for approval of all the final documents, including the details of the bond financing. It's kind of the structure that nothing different than what we've done before. So the plan of finance, the details, are the Sports Authority ultimately be asked to issue about $65 million in revenue bonds for this project. 30-year term. Will probably capitalize interest for 2 years. So essentially during the construction period and the early months, we basically put into the bond issue enough money to pay for that interest. So you don't have, because as you'll see from the source of payments, some of those revenues to pay for it won't be available until that time. So you capitalize interest in the bond transaction. We will secure these bonds, as we've done with the other Sports Authority debt. We'll secure these with a pledge of the city's non-tax revenues. Here, the only twist is here we're pledging the Urban Service District non-tax revenues. The prior transactions have all been the General Services District non-tax revenues. The USD non-tax revenues aren't pledged to anything else. They generate somewhere between $14 and $18 million a year. So there's ample coverage from a bondholder perspective, because as you see is on the bottom line is that the annual debt on this transaction is right at $4.3 million a year. All right. Proceeds, again, I told you $65 million, broken down, $37 million for the ballpark, $23 million for land, and about $5 million for the capitalized interest piece. So that's kind of how we arrived at the $65 million. All right. The $4.3 million question is how we're going to pay for this. And this is where I think what makes this project very unique is that essentially this project and the development is going to pay for almost the entire cost of this project. We have 5 listed sources of payment. You have the Sounds lease at $700,000, sales tax redirect. Under state law, if you build a new minor league AA or AAA stadium, you're allowed to collect the growth in local option sales tax and all of the state sales tax that's collected at the site. Again, estimates will vary on this. Some are higher, some are lower. I kind of used a medium because until we get there, until you see what the attendance is, this is the number that will fluctuate somewhat from year to year because it's going to be depending on how many tickets they sell and how many Cokes they sell and how much beer they drink. So it'll fluctuate a little bit, but I think these are realistic numbers based on what I think will be at least a modest, if not a great growth in attendance at the new site. The Sounds development will generate property tax revenue of about $750,000. The Embry development, about $675,000. And there's some existing MDHA revenue from TIF loans that they had previously made in the Phillips Jackson District that have been repaid and is available for public use, for public projects. And MDHA has agreed to make that available for this project. So all told, there's about $3.3 million of revenue coming in from these sources. And in addition, I think it's important, you got to look at budget costs that we eliminate. These are dollars that are currently in the operating budget that we avoid because of this transaction. Currently, we pay the Sounds about $250,000 a year for maintenance at Greer. That goes away. And as I said earlier, we're paying the state some $410,000 for the leasing of the School of the Arts, which goes away because it becomes Metro property. So you save from your current budget about $660,000, not about, exactly, $660,000 of current obligations which go away because of this transaction, which results in a net operating impact to the budget, so the city budget of about $345,000 a year, which I think is, it's all relative. It's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but in a $1.8 billion budget, it's a fairly insignificant number for a project of this nature in our minds. And so we think that's what the net impact of the budget. And what we would do every year is like we do on the other Sports Authority debt that we think there's going to have to be a Metro subsidy. We would budget, during the budget process, we would put into the proposed budget what we anticipate that amount would be to make sure we had enough money to pay debt service that would come due during the next fiscal year. So we would look at that number, put it in the operating budget, and to make sure there was sufficient monies in there to cover the $4.3 million debt service. But I think it is reasonable that that number would be in that range. And finally, the project benefits, some of which we've already talked about. But I don't think you can underemphasize the importance of what this project means from a redevelopment purpose along Jefferson Street. I've had several people comment to me that they think a minor league stadium is great, but they really like it because of where we're proposing it going. We think it is a game changer along Jefferson Street with an immediate investment, public and private, of nearly $150 million. Probably more money that's been spent in that area in some time. For baseball lovers, such as myself, baseball returns to its historic home at Sulphur Dell. I think that is, from a marketing perspective and from just an image perspective, I think will in and of itself be a home run, to use a really bad baseball metaphor. That's the first one I've done, I think, so that's not bad. I mean, get on my last page and not use a baseball grand slam, home run, but anyway, we'll get them all out one time. We've talked a lot about the connectivity of Germantown to downtown. If you look there now, it's sort of a little bit of a wasteland between what's all the exciting stuff that's happening in Germantown and obviously downtown. And this just, I think, will create another a zone of growth and development for Nashville. Most importantly, from my perspective, and I think from the mayor's perspective, when we started on all this, the mayor was really clear that a new stadium is great, but it's not a necessity. He'd like to do the deal, but it's got to make a lot of fiscal sense and economic sense for the city. And I think this transaction answers all those concerns. Minimal fiscal impact to the government with a project that essentially pays for itself. Ballpark will be owned by, I don't think we ever said this before, but the ballpark will be owned by the Sports Authority City. So you now have, you would have three facilities under your domain. And then, as I said earlier, and I think is sort of one of the really key factors in this that no one really I think thought about, is the permanent home for the Nashville School of the Arts. I think that is very, very important from the school's perspective and for the users and students who go to that school. So that is the presentation. Those are the details. Obviously, there are lots of documents that you will be presented with to review. Timing-wise, we've planned it. It'll be ready for first reading of the Metro Council on November 19th. Then would then be scheduled for second reading of the council on December 3rd. and we will be talking to the vice mayor and the council staff about a special meeting to approve this on third reading, because we need to get this done as soon as possible in December for a couple reasons. One, we want to be on the site in January so we can start digging underground, digging down in order to try to be ready for the April 15 baseball season. But probably more importantly from a time perspective is our relationship with Embry requires the deal to be completed before the end of the year. As you can imagine, Embry has a site that they can start building on, and they want to make sure this is a done deal. And so we have an obligation to them really to complete this. And so assuming sometime in earlier December, a third reading of the council, we would then ask for a sports authority meeting sometime, sometime after the 7th and before the 15th of December. We still have to work out. It kind of depends on when the third reading would be, once we get that worked out, for a special meeting of the sports council, or a December meeting of the sports authority to approve, to hopefully, if we've answered your questions and concerns, to approve this in time to allow us to then sell the bonds prior to the end of the year. We have a very fast pace to sell the bonds. We'll obviously do a lot of work in advance to get there, and then close on the real estate transactions to make this all happen so that we can have graders out in the digging dirt on the site in January. So that's kind of the time frame what's going to come up. So
this time we're going to have questions from the members of the authority. Kathy?
Yes, Rich, I may be a little bit premature, but as always, I'm interested in the bond issue.
Sure.
Taxable or tax exempt?
Yeah, great question. Actually.
And also kind of a general feeling of what the sentiment is around an issue right now and what kind of anticipated rates of return.
Jeff Oldham and Lillian Blackshear are here from Bass Berry, who can correct anything I say wrong. Hopefully I won't say it wrong. The transaction will be primarily tax exempt. I have it, I think I wrote, did I write it down? I didn't write it down. I did. About roughly 50 to 55 million of it will be tax exempt, and 10 or 11 of it will be taxable. All of the transaction is tax exempt except for the amount the Sounds lease would finance. And because that's a private payment, that portion of the payment stream has to go to a taxable series of bonds. So essentially the $700,000 lease payment, you just run the numbers and impute how much you generate from that, and that portion of it's taxable, and the rest of it would be done on a tax-exempt basis. And then you got the pro rata capitalized interest for each of them, but that's the way it would be done. I met with the rating agencies week before last, and so they're ready for the transaction to come. We think that it will get the same rating as the other Sports Authority debt, which is just one notch below Metro's rating, because it's not a GO credit, but it's just these certain revenues pledge, so it doesn't get a full faith and credit kind of rating that the city gets, but it's a notch below, which would be a AA2 for Moody's or a AA minus from S&P. So still a AA, still a strong AA credit. And so, the sense is interest rates are only going to go up, so the sooner you do the deal, the better. The only complication we'll run into potentially is December is a complicated month in the financial world. There's a lot of holidays, and a lot of people trying to get deals done at the end of the year, just to get them done at the end of the year. And so we're going to watch that carefully. I mean, we don't want to overpay just to get something done, but we think we'll be able to get it done sometime around mid-December in order to get the bond sold. But obviously our financial advisor will watch the market pretty carefully, and if they think we're making a big mistake, we'll try to work the transaction to try to make it in January. But right now, we think it's going to be it's a large transaction, but in a relatively speaking, in the bond world, it's not a couple $100 million transaction. So we think there will be a good buyer for this. We'll probably have a retail order period to try to get some retail interest in these bonds, because we think there would be, just because of the nature of it. It's not Morgan Keegan anymore. I can't. Thank you. Raymond James, so they're a sort of local-based, Tennessee-based underwriter will be the lead underwriter on the bonds, and so they have a lot of retail clients, so I think there'll be a market for these bonds. It'll be a pretty attractive market.
Chuck, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Brother Chairman. I would just like to just say a great presentation by you and the builders and everything. And I'd like to thank the councilman again for being here today, and the members from the mayor's office. I've been on the board just a little bit over a year, and this is a very exciting time for me after umpiring in the minor leagues for some 7 or 8 years.
We'll get you out of retirement to come back.
You know you won't. And in the big leagues for some over 20 years, I've seen a lot of stadiums, old and new, and worked in some bad ones and some very good ones. And I think it's very important that we go around to different cities and get different ideas. Because one story I heard about the ballpark in San Francisco, and I don't know if it's true, is that once it was complete and they were walking around with Dusty Baker, who was the manager at that time, Dusty said, "It looks very nice, but where are the bullpens?" There were no bullpens, so I believe that's why they're set up down the third and first base line. So I think it's very important to do that.
The sounds are going to be intimately involved in the design of this. They're going to be at all the meetings and their input to make sure that what we build is a ballpark that they're proud of and one that is usable too. I mean, it's got to be practical and usable as much as anything else, and we make sure that's going to happen.
Well, that's very good. I have a close relationship with Doug and Brad out at the Sounds, because the job we're passing down in now, I spend a lot of time out there, so I think that's very important. We want to also remember to make a nice umpire's room.
I think that's a conflict of interest. I'm not sure that,
Because you would be surprised, especially at the major league level, that's where the commissioner and everybody from his entourage, that's where they end up doing the playoffs in the World Series. So we want to make that a very comfortable room and a friendly room. And I think it's also important to make the field umpire friendly. I've seen a lot of new ballparks, and they're not umpire-friendly. A couple of ballparks, and when I say umpire-friendly, we want the fans to be involved. In the old days, when a ball went over the wall, it was gone in a home run. Today, fans are there where you can reach over and stuff. We had a situation a few years ago in the big leagues where one of our major league stadiums lowered the wall, where at one time it was a pretty good drop to get down on the field, and they lowered it, and fans could just step over, and we had first base coaches and umpires attack, so we want to make it umpire friendly. And I think one of the most important things, and we've had different lockouts and strikes over the course of the years in Houston, where we used to dress, to get back to our car from our locker room, we just walked across the field because it was easier to get to the car. And as we were walking across the field, there were probably 200 people up in the stands, cleaning the stands after the ballpark. And one thing that I'm really excited about with the new stadium, that it will create new jobs. And those are the people that really suffer when players and umpires are out on strike and on lock. And I'm very excited about this possibility. And I'd just like to thank the council members and the mayor's office for this opportunity.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank
Steve?
you. I have two questions, and then I'd like to make a comment, if I may. Will any of this real estate have to be acquired by eminent domain?
Nope. That was one of the requirements we put in the transaction, that we were not going to do that, and
I congratulate you on that. The second question is, what is non-tax revenue?
I was wondering who was going to ask that. Non-tax revenues are essentially everything but sales and property taxes. So there's some fees and there's some in lieu of tax payments that are attributable to the USD. It'd be like a TVA and some other utilities make in lieu of tax payments. And so it's that plus some fees which are allocated to the Urban Services District. Okay. Collection of fees, but not sales or property tax, which is we think always the critical element of not pledging those because they're so needed for the government.
A comment, if I may. The Sports Authority has been interested for many years in a downtown ballpark and in minor league baseball. And I think this is very, very exciting. I congratulate your office and the administration and everybody involved in putting this jigsaw puzzle together. And this kind of project can only work if there's a real dedication on the part of the administration to see that it gets done. And I think this is very, very exciting. I'm very excited. I know if you look at AutoZone in Memphis, if you look at Wrigley Field in Chicago, some of the most desirable residential real estate is an apartment that has a balcony overlooking left field or right field. And I think that really adds to the atmosphere of downtown Nashville. I think it's very, very exciting. I congratulate you on being able to do it in what appears to be a financially, fiscally responsible way that brings a lot of different players into an investment into the action. And I'm very excited about it.
Thank you, Steve. Are the other?
We did record that. I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
You didn't know what was coming, did you?
I have to say, I always welcome Mr. North's questions because they always make sure I pay attention. So I appreciate those kind comments. Thank you very much. We feel the same way about the transaction in terms of how it all came together.
Kim has a question.
Yes,
Hey, Rich, what about the state's process procedurally to get this done by the
Right.
end of the year? Can you just touch on that?
Yeah, the state is planning to take it to the building commission sometime in late November. Can't remember the exact date. 25th of November to the executive subcommittee of the state building commission. That's kind of how they operate, I mean, there's been obviously a lot of discussion with all the stakeholders at the state level, coordinated by General Services, who have done yeoman's work in making their constituency, kind of all come together, because you got all the members of the building commission, and as you can imagine, everybody having a different idea about what they want and all that. Not an easy process, and they've done a great job in kind of consolidating that to get us to where we are today. And so assuming approval of them in late November, then the transaction's ready to go forward.
Before the full board in December?
I don't think it has to go to the full board. I say that without complete knowledge of that, but tell me how time. Isn't that what Chloe said? Is that the 25th Executive Sub Building Commission would be the approval? And then there's some issues of signing off on the design, things of that will come subsequent. But those are just to make sure everybody's good neighbors, which I think we all work on together on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
All of the presentations will be uploaded to our website. So as we move through this process, both the Sports Authority and Council, the Sports Authority website on the Nashville.gov webpage will be kind of the repository for different presentations and whatnot, and public meetings, and we'll put a link up to this meeting as well so that people can keep up with what's being discussed, the issues at hand and whatnot.
Other questions? Yes.
Not a question, just a brief comment.
Okay.
I think the sounds management and ownership deserve some credit for helping put this together. If I remember Mr. North led the effort on the earlier proposal 5 or 6 years ago. Everybody's money was in the deal except the previous ownership, and that's what caused that deal to collapse. So the Sound's willingness to put some skin in the game, as you mentioned,
critical,
Rich,
yeah.
I think is critical.
I don't think we would never be here. I mean, we would never have brought this to you without that, and so we do appreciate that. And I know Frank Ward wanted to be here today, but he had some illness and couldn't be here today. But General Manager Brett Hinnan's here, and John Triggs, who's their local counsel, as well as their other lawyers in Waller, are here today to show support. So it would not have been here without that.
Before we have a motion that we wanted to adopt the resolution for today's meeting that would request approval to issue the bonds, I'm going to ask Tom Cross, legal counsel, to kind of review what we're really doing when we approve this resolution.
You're seeking approval from the Metro Council for you to issue the bonds. It's one step in the process.
Are there any questions about that procedure?
Second.
Motion's made and second for approval of the resolution. Are the all in favor? Well, let's have discussion again one more time. See, be sure. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Rich, and thank all who are here today, and thank you especially for the leadership you've given to this, and you've really kept Toby involved in this so that we could be kept up to date, and as Toby said, we will be kept up to date on this. It will require us to have a meeting in December, and as soon as we know the date, we'll get out, and hopefully we can have attendance as we have today with all of our members present.
When we determine when the third reading of the Metro Council will be, we'll begin scheduling, and I'll be in touch with each of you to determine what day and time will work best. We've given you in your packet kind of a range of those dates of what we think presumably it could be.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Approved.